group apparently, as Darrenville has gotten 2 wins, and that's about it so far. This will be the first race for Jinny, and it looks like we're off. See, we have started our timers and gotten ourselves into the intro stage. And we will be seeing both players holding a lot of right and mashing all the way through the stage up to the first B, and then do a little bit more of mashing. This is what this game has a famous intro for. It's not necessarily difficult, but you do need to have a good mash, otherwise you can get a little bit going of what happens there on square one side, as we do see him take a little bonk on the blue guys before his third B. That means he might have to be careful. Oh, does not get the B moving forward. This can actually happen. If you are not quick to move through a B, then there is a potential that it will simply not move forward, and if you try to walk through, it will give you an extra hit on your way passing. And if you're already low HP, that can result in a death, as we just saw. And that is quite a setback to start on for squares. Long way to go, however, so we'll have to see how he manages to catch up here to Jinny over the course of this race. And Jinny, meanwhile, is passing on to the ending sequence of the intro. We'll be looking to kill a few more cars, and as that happens, oh, bye. Gosh. Oh, that's unfortunate. There was a second death there for squares, so that is really unfortunate to see happening. Meanwhile, Jinny gets a 203 grab on the intro, that file. And yeah, Square is unlucky with his bees here. He gets 2 deaths on the bees. That's really rarely seen, but as you can see, not impossible. Whatever you think to be seeing on the timer of Jinny is probably, I don't know what that is really. It's also not important. We have to watch the run. Squares decides to take it a little bit easier on his bees and decides to mash it down from the front. Doesn't want to take a third death, is already in quite a deficit to start. He probably does realize that his circumstances here are not exactly ideal. And Jinny, meanwhile, on his way through the Penguin stage, looking to pick up his dash boots pretty soon. In case you're a fan of Randomizer, don't worry, they're coming up soon. But you can still spam water those in the chat if you like. And as Jinny goes and talks to Dr. Light in the capsule, we see Square One arriving at the airship, taking down a couple cars. Gets a little extra health drop there. The game offers it to him, but you clearly don't want that. You need to be low HP. Otherwise, File will not cage you and take you in hostage. So, we have a 404 grab for squares. And oh, actually, if I saw that correctly right over there, we have squares playing the US version of the game. This means that whatever time he gets in this race would be approximately, I believe, 13 seconds faster if you were playing on a Japanese version. And Jinny now fighting with Penguin. Doesn't want to get a lot of slides. Has a slide or 2 so far. 3. Gets a double slide. Not something you like to see as a runner. And as he's pretty close to finishing off Penguin. We see that Squares 1 has started off his run into the Penguin stage. It's pretty odd to see a deficit this large at the start of a race, but well, I mean, mistakes can happen, you know, no one's free of them. The 5:17 time for Jinny here. It's a pretty decent time on this Penguin. And moving on to Coanger now. Square is almost reaching his dash boots. So he will be happy to pick up those so he can actually get his run going. Jinny enjoying himself on that left wall, trying to move on. Like that, skips one of the ladders. You don't really gain that much by skipping that one specific ladder, but it is actually so that, I mean, climbing ladders is fairly slow, so if you can skip them, it's not a bad thing. And he does not do turtle skip, decides to wait out for what the turtles are doing and just jump past the bombs, the missiles. And right here we see him abusing the elevator glitch, where you can just wall jump onto the spikes and then just sit there on the side and safely pass through without taking damage. Squares, meanwhile, is at the Penguin door and will be about ready to take on his first Maverick. And we see Jinny is actually at the top of every ladder, jumping off and doing a little kick on the side to try and get himself up faster. Not sure if he will be saving that much time with it unless he actually jumps pretty far outside of the gap, but I'd have to ask someone who's slightly more experienced with ladder gaps for that. And Squares is happy to tank through the ice sculptures of Penguin. Gets a couple extra slides for the road. Coanger, meanwhile, has appeared on the side of Jinny, who apparently has 2 left feet because he doesn't even invite Coanger to dance. That's something we don't see a lot, that people tackle this fight without initiating the dance, but if you do not feel confident, it can be a risk to go at it. If you're fairly low HP and you get grabbed by Coanger and smashed into the wall, that's a lot of damage to take, and you know, things can go wrong pretty quickly. Meanwhile, Square with some nice movement at the start of the Coanger stage. Navigating through a bunch of lasers, trying to matrix himself all the way through there. And does get a good start for the turtle skip. And unfortunately does get smashed down by the second turtle, so needs to take a little bit of time to get through the rest of that. And you will probably also... oh no, he's not actually going to use the glitch on the elevator. It looked like he was setting up for it, but he did end up not doing that. Meanwhile, Jinny attempting to go through the cave, and Chameleon stopping especially a little bit here and there to make sure he's not gonna get trolled too much by the rocks. Didn't make any big stops, but you know, just those mini stops as you're looking, is anything dropping down or not. Potentially removing any obstacles from your way. Squares, meanwhile, having a pretty good climb here. Coanger climbs throughout the tower are pretty difficult, but he's doing quite a good job. And both players will be facing their next boss in the sequence. Chameleon quite free as always, but Jinny does appear to have a bit of a own strat on this. Something I've not seen before, where people do a strat like this. And meanwhile, Square is actually initiating a dance. Coanger did break the pattern, but he will be fine for the remainder of this. And something I should mention with the Sting Chameleon fight there we saw from Jinny is that Chameleon has two places he can go when he jumps to the side. Either he will go fairly close to the middle and hang from the ceiling with his tongue and start to spike attack, or he will go and jump all the way to the corner of the room and throw some sea stings of his own right at you. And if he actually jumps all the way to the corner of the room, then he will be a bit further away from you. And we saw that Jinny actually missed one of his boomerangs, and that's probably because he did not quite expect Chameleon to go to, well, the corner of the room, and that caused him to miss a shot. So he had to take a little bit more time there to go back and fire a new shot at him. Meanwhile, we do see that the square will be going off and taking a little bit of safety for himself. Probably is not very comfortable about his late game as of yet, and opting into some safety armor. There have been times where people call this the armor of shame. However, to be fair, it's not really a shameful thing to do, to pick up the armor. It's a really huge boon to your defenses. And there is definitely no shame in needing it to finish this game. We do mention it every race, but it's very brutal. Damage output goes beyond insanity, and you may as well be playing Dark Souls, except it's kinda do 2D and not very open world-ish or anything like that. So, Eagle going down over on the side of Jinny. Was pretty good stage fight. And that means he will be moving on to Spark Mandrel next. Felt like he hesitated a little bit on his stage select, potentially because he wanted to make sure that he selects the right stage. It's another one of those small things, really. If you would be too fast on your stage select, and then you go and hit the wrong one, you do have to sacrifice a bunch of time if it's a really poor thing. Like if you really pick a bad stage select, like you go back to your previous stage or something like that, you need to menu out, or in the worst case you pick a stage where you don't want to be at, and yeah, it goes pretty wrong. Because you would have to reset your console and password back in. Million going down on the square side, and Mandrel stage being taken on by Jinny, who actually got a bit of a bad pattern here on Thunder Slimer as he stayed on the ceiling. Ideally, you want him to come down so you can really mash a lot of fast damage into him. But unfortunately, if he does not do so, all you can do is climb the wall and just take him on there. And Jinny really consistently moving out of these gaps while he's climbing ladders is very exclusive, to be fair. I have not ever seen anyone do that so consistently. Not that it's necessarily hard, but simply because no one really simply does that. And he will now be fighting Mandrel. Meanwhile, we do see that Square has picked himself up a sub-tank to work with in the late game. Taking a little bit of extra safety, and meanwhile, poor Mandrel getting frozen over and over, and eventually meeting his demise at the hands of Jinny. Perhaps, fortunately, otherwise he would have destroyed pieces of the world together with his boss. So we do see Square heading into Eagle right now. Looking for some good RNG here to make up a little bit of time. As we do see Jinny go to Armored Armadillo next. And Four squares gets an eagle fight with a lot of dives, and if he does not come down after one dive, he will get at least 6 and potentially 9. So yeah, that is quite unfortunate. Meanwhile, Jinny going on to the Dillo stage. Dillo stage quite straightforward. Gets a lot of mine cards, so you can kind of sit back and relax during this stage. Jinny talking in the chat, and I for some reason either missed what he's talking about or I'm not actually sure what he meant with the pause by mistake. I guess I missed something. Anyhow, Mammoth is the new challenge for Square One. Meanwhile, Dillo is being taken by Jinny. Seems to have gotten good RNG. Dillo in the left corner is really what you want to see. Not a lot of rolling. We have seen terrible rolls from Dillo before, but at least not this time, or at least not on Jinny's end. Oh, pause the timer. Okay. That is something. That might be why I did not notice that. So we see Squares taking on Mammoth. Not having any big issues. Does get thrown on his butt for a second. Mammoth telling him to sit down. Be a good boy. However, Squares is not having any of that and is like, nope, gotta die. So I can move on and beat the crap out of Jinny. Jinny doing a little bit of 100% strats here. Mostly in any percent you will see the RNG getting manipulated and then just people mashing right into the subs. But Jinny uses some RNG manip here on the sub and then actually keeps moving back and forth, changing the direction he's facing to then dodge taking damage and quickly shoot a thing or two right at the sub. Squares meanwhile making his way forward through the mineral stage with some fire wave. That's pretty hype right there. And then using his tornadoes through this Zam's hallway, as we like to call it. We'll now be using the tornado to attempt and take down Thunder Slimer. As we see Jinny going for Octopus, not going to be cutting the arms, going to go in and straight up hit them all over the place. And actually gets a really nice fight, no swirlies or anything whatsoever. Meaning he gets a really good fight out of that. Squares taking up another safety, the Mineral Heart. Very common to take for a lot of runners. It's not really out of the way, easy to pick up. And guarantees some late game insurance. With that, Jinny will be moving on to his final Maverick in the 8 Mavs, which is Burnin' New Matter or Flame Mammoth. This entire stage is in fact frozen over. This would actually be a factory full of lava if you were not to kill Penguin before you came here. A couple stages get altered by other stages as you beat them. I'm not sure of all of them, but I know the Mandrill, as we see Mandrill explode there on Square side, Mandrill stage also gets altered by whether or not you beat the Eagle stage before coming here. It's also a thing. You may remember the stage to be different if you played the weakness route as a child. And Mammoth coming right up there on Jinny's side, meaning that he's on his last fight for this 8 mavs. Looking to put down a decent time before going into the Signal Fortress. Squares, meanwhile, is taking some cart rides, nice and easy. Just made a gold split on Spark Mandrel for this man. And Mammoth explodes, mostly off screen. That's very nicely done by Jinny. And that will conclude his 8 mavs. At the 2016 kill on Mammoth. Oh no, Squares loses. Decided to hop off the minecart for a second, and well, the minecart in response was like, "What? I'm not good enough for you. I'm leaving without ya." So minecart drove right off, leaving him behind. Luckily, his little brother was like, "Ah, it's okay. I have no friends either. I'll pick you up." So Jinny doing a leap setup, but decides to opt out of it as it didn't look too good. And you don't really want to die there because, you know, dying is quite costly. Again, those jumps out of the gaps. And Dillo for Squares. What RNG do we get? Very good RNG. Instantly stopping the rolls. Meaning that there will be a really easy fight following up on this for Squares. And Jinny moving on to the file skip. Already got the first part done. Now gets caged by a file as we see Zero jump out, and yeah, the skip seems to have been executed nicely. So Zero will be flying off your screen right there. The little cutscene I've always found rather funny. As you take the sprite from Zero as he's laying on the ground a little bit later from here, and that sprite is what you see flying away. As, you look closely. And Jinny gets a pretty good Vile fight. He keeps his distance, but that doesn't mean he has a lot of safety to kill Vile. And there we see poor Zero bleeding on the ground, fading away. And Squares is meanwhile heading into the octopus fight, almost. Halfway through the stage now. Looking to finish his 8 mavs. We should probably take a look at what his time is as he finishes Octo, just to have a bit of an idea what the time difference between the two runners is right now. I believe it will be quite large. We may well be looking at a 3-minute difference or so between the two runners right now. Because unfortunately Squares did have a really, really poor start to his run here. Unfortunately, dying 2 times to the first B was not an ideal situation. Quanger has the first refight for Jinny going down. Now moving on to Bow Spider. He looks like he wants some extra HP, but does not instantly get the drops, and decides he doesn't want to waste time either trying to farm. And Squares will be killing Octo at the 24:05, meaning he is actually almost 4 minutes behind on that kill time on his final Maverick. That is quite a big time difference between these two runners. At least for now, we will see where they go from here. Any mistake being made in the Sigma stages usually involves quite a big time loss, so we will just have to see if Jinny messes up here or there. And if he does, what Squares can do to catch up in that time frame. But whatever happens, to be entirely honest, it's not gonna be Spider. Spider is happily going down on the side of Jinny. Square, meanwhile, is navigating his way to the Vile fight and bonking down his HP. This is one thing that's a little bit annoying, of course, about taking the armor, is that you have to lose HP here, and because you take 50% reduced damage, you do take a little longer, a couple extra hits. It's not a really big deal, but yeah. Also, you see that he is on the US version, I mentioned it earlier, but that does not really matter for the Vile skip. You do see that this cutscene is skipped as you usually see. You can do this in any version of the game, it does not matter. If you have this game at home, feel free to try it, ask someone what the setup is, or check the wiki that we have, and you will see that any version, even the one you have at home on your old SNES, you can execute this glitch. There are a couple things that may or may not work in certain versions of the game, but this is definitely something that works across all of them. Jinny, meanwhile, is halfway through the Sigma 2 stage, where there's a lot of RNG going on. He got past Penguin quite nicely, and is now looking for what kind of RNG Eagle's giving him. This while Squares is looking at the Zero cutscene. Oh. Eagle diving so fast that Seasting is not exactly catching up to him on Jinny's side. And Squares with some tough movement here. Actually lost his charge on Seasting as he released at a bit of an unfortunate time. And not getting some invincibility going. Jinny reaches Rangda, so both playing their respective bosses. Koanger not really RNG, but Jinny definitely looking for what he can get out of Rangda. And actually gets a couple nice eyes and whatnot out of there. Rangda exploding, Koanger went down. Square does try to find a health drop right before the boss door, but unfortunately isn't getting one, so he'll just have to move on to Spider with any HP he's got here. So let's hope that he reads all the patterns correctly and doesn't make any oopsies. So, Jinny looking at the Dillo skip. Will he make it? Will he not? It'll look pretty close, but he made it. He did step quite far forward though. And meanwhile, a lot of baby spiders being thrown at Square. It's not really something you want to see. Other than that, he seems to be quite well versed in reading these patterns. And is actually doing a really good job on not panicking. You would think that this man stays put, and you think, well, he's not even moving, Drago. Like, what kind of idiot are you saying that he's doing a good job reading while he doesn't even move? Well, very likely he reads the patterns and then even decides whether he needs to move. Because, I mean, a good runner will look and see, oh, do I need to move? Yes, no. You might have to get into a position to get the hit in, but maybe you're already on a position where you won't get hit and also be able to score a good hit. So perhaps staying put is just the right decision. It's, however, not easy to do for everyone, and it's always nice to see when someone is good at reading those patterns. So Penguin coming up there for squares, and Octopus going up for Jinny, who kind of looks like he wanted that safety health, but apparently that ledge was not cooperating with him. So both having some RNG popping in here, Penguin with the slides and swirlies on Octo. Jinny does jump into Octo. Oof. Makes a big hit there. Oof. Survives the fight with 1 HP. Oof. That is quite a close call. If he had taken even one more missile hit, he would have been a goner. Allowing squares to close some of the distance between the two of them. Mind you that this all started out from a very unfortunate intro stage. And that this race right now would be much closer were it not for that. So Eagle is exploding there on the side of squares, meaning he gets to go to his final RNG boss in Sigma 2, which will be ranked off, looking to get a lot of blue and red eyes. It's almost as if we're watching Yu-Gi-Oh here. Oh, gets a green eye, that's unfortunate. Doesn't get the third hit on the red eye. It's kind of sad, and good RNG there going up for Jinny. Gets the spark ball pattern, which is something you really want to see against DRX, meaning that you're not gonna take a risk of getting hit here. So boat runners finishing their stages here. They are the entirety of Sigma 3 apart, so we'll just have to see what happens here. Jinny does have a good chance at closing out this race. If he just executes nicely on the final stage here. And all Squares wants to do is really just try his best at making no mistakes. And he does a nice skip on Dillo. It's a good start. For him, it's just important to get through right now and make sure that he has nothing bad going on, because at this point, you need to realize that everything is in the hands of Jinny. If Jinny makes a mistake and dies, then Squares can catch up, but there's not much he can do other than try his best to get through. At least at this point. Chameleon going down, almost too hard, and Jedi is now the new challenger for Jinny, who does seem a little bit off with the shots here. Spark shots at the Jedi. He's missed quite a few. However, he still has enough ammo left to easily finish this fight. And Squares, meanwhile, fighting Mandrill on the refight. Gets a little punch in the face and another one. But does get through it nicely, and Jinny will be, taking a hit from a claw. Needs to be careful as he tries to get up there. Oof, takes another hit. He doesn't have, lightning to the face, or well, to the foot rather. That is enough to send him down. That means he will have to farm his ammo back up. This will grant Squares a little bit of extra time to catch up right now. He is Jinny is using the charged rolling shield to kill the enemies instantly as soon as they come out and collect their drops. You don't see the rolling shield very well. You can see a slide animation going around them. This is possibly due to Jinny streaming in 30 FPS, meaning that you cannot always see the weapons that the players are using. So he has refilled all of his ammo. Squares is, in fact, chasing after him, going on to the mammoth fight. We'll just have to see. Jinny now has the menu out of this rolling shield, otherwise he can't weapon swap. The shield will stay active until a specific enemy strong enough breaks it, or you somehow cancel it out, which means you either need to die or somehow deactivate the rolling shield, like by menuing. It's not like you have a lot of options for it otherwise. Mammoth goes down quite easily for squares, and Jinny did take a hit on Valgarder, so we'll just have to look what happens here. As he goes down the Jedi fight again. And then we'll be all up to the claws. I think everyone kind of knows by now that the claws can be quite terrible to deal with. They're not always the worst, but definitely sometimes they're having a field day. That's something we cannot lie about. And here we do see Squares finishing off the IrreX, and he will also be moving on to Sigma 4 in just a second. Wolf Sigma reloading his halberd for the second time on Jinny's end. Oh, Claw instantly wanted a piece of him, but he did nicely dodge that. See, the claw moving into you is not really a big deal if you're somewhere on the top, since, you know, the top side is a platform, so you can stand on it. But, yeah. If it's on the bottom, those claws really, with the nails and everything, really do quite the hit. And Jinny finishes final Sigma with a time of RaceBot saying 36:48. So that is a job well done by Jinny. So all we're looking for now is Squares to be finishing his end of the first race. Now we will be having a full set here, so do not run anywhere yet, because as soon as Squares is done, we will take a look whether the runners need a little break, and then we will be going right back on to race number 2. Shots getting nicely placed with the Jedi Sigma here. Kaboom. Well, I mean, 60 FPS is not necessarily required, Jenny, but I mean, it's always nice. It does give some special effect if you don't use it. So, claws. So far being very nice to Square. Couple lightnings on that left claw, but nothing very big. Right claw not coming over. This is what we would call a very generous pattern. He finishes his race with a time of 38:35. That is a very respectable time, and that was a pretty good race from both runners, I would say. Definitely had the chance to go either way. Now, it would also have been a lot closer. Square did not die twice on the intro. I mean, that was an unfortunate setting. And otherwise, this run looked pretty damn solid. I can see a split over on my end, and I see that his times were very consistent. So it's unfortunate that things went the way as they did. But he can definitely look to redeem himself, as we will be having a new race going on soon. I will just check with the runners what's gonna be the deal, if they want a little break or not. Alright, it looks, by the looks of it, I would say that both of our runners are ready to go back in. Both have already joined the new race in the SRL chat. And I do suppose we will be readying up in just a moment. Alright, I see boat runners are ready, so we will be seeing them going back in pretty dang soon. But for now we can look at those loading screens. You see here on the title screen as well, MMX versus Rockman X, the difference between the two games. Not really anything different between the games other than that title screen and the text, of course. So, what we're looking for here probably at the start of race 2 is probably a little bit of focus on the side of squares, and let's just pray that he does not die on the intro this time. And if he has to, let's pray he at least doesn't do it twice. And he actually took a little extra step behind the BE, making sure he did not take a hit there. But he did. Oh, he did get a machine gun on the first B, so he technically doesn't really risk dying. And on top of that, he did actually find a big health in between the two Bs, so he will be entirely safe from this point on. Well, I mean, that's not completely true. You can have other things going on in the intro, but let's just say it's fairly unlikely to die after the piece. Oh, Jinny having to dodge out on a bit of HP there. Oh. Same for square. So boat moving on. This is actually looking a lot better already. Jinny spawning a ship. Square took a little bit longer on his intro stage there, getting to the airship spot, but it's really not a big deal. This is only the intro, so. And actually Square gets a much better ship. Jinny is drifted off quite a ways, and it might not look like much, but that can really make quite a difference. And their timers are a little bit like a second off from each other, but if I looked at it, I do believe that both had pretty much the same, well, you know, timer on the grab. So this is looking pretty close. That heats for a pretty good race. I, for one, am very excited to see that they are both tied getting out of intro, and that we do not see Square getting out of the intro as Jinny gets to the boss door in Penguin. That was a rather unfortunate outlook to start with. So both of them will be navigating through the snow and looking for some shelter here in the cave of the Penguin stage. Mostly getting to this dash capsule, excuse me, does not require anything super difficult except for the slope jumps in this climbing section. But most of the enemies in this area are also quite easy to deal with. The wheels and the bats both have very simple movement and do not pose a giant threat. They also don't deal a lot of damage. Both enemies are just going to deal like 1 damage to you. So if you do take a hit here, or you miss a jump and need to take a little bonk. It's never really a big deal. Both of them moving forward, getting out of the cave now that they have their dash boots and are able to go fast. Snowballer section being handled pretty well by Jinny. It takes a little bonk somewhere, but it's not really a big deal. In fact, if you're new to this game, it can actually be easy if you have the HP to simply bonk all through the snowballer section, because it's just a fairly difficult section to do otherwise. And Jinny so far getting some decent luck to start out on Penguin as he sits there in that corner. Doesn't slide off. Square getting himself a little bit chilly there as he gets turned into a nice sculpture for a second. And he gets a 504 kill. Jinny on Penguin, that's pretty good. We'll be looking at the Square 2 finishing here up in a second with a 521 kill on the Penguin. So Jinny looks to be a little bit ahead, but really not too much. So back to Kuwanger stage. It's a lot of climbing in this stage. It's pretty cool to see when you're watching someone play this game, how they handle everything in this tower. It's a lot of climbing and whatnot. It's nice to look at. However, for runners, this stage is quite terrible. To play it through once in a run is not too bad. However, it's mostly practicing the stage can be quite bad. It can really hurt your hands if you're gonna sit there and have to do a lot of climbing. It's pretty heavy on runners, this stage. Neither player getting too cleanly through the turtles, but also not having any serious issues. You can't just wait out the rockets. The turtles fire at you and then just walk on your way. The elevator is a little break in between. So it's kind of like the developers even thought about it 20-25 years ago. Like, hey, this stage is pretty hard for speedrunners, let's give him a break halfway through here. Oh, Jinny goes for Iceless. Gets it first try, wow. I'm not sure right now. I do not think I noticed him doing that in the first race, and now I'm like wondering, I thought through the entire run did he get more HP than he should be having. So I'm not sure now if I potentially missed him getting that in the first race as well. But I probably did. And now Jinny back to the no dancing strats as he says to Kuwanger, nope, I have 2 left feet, so deal with it. We're just gonna do the old-fashioned way where we actually fight. And Square did invite Kuwanger to dance, but Kuwanger didn't have any of it, and got thrown into the ceiling, but handled it pretty well, recovered, did not panic, and finished the fight pretty nicely. Also, it appears that meanwhile our X1 to X4 relay has concluded with a victory to Team Vava. So congratulations to those guys. So, chameleon stage now for both of these runners. And both of them will be trying to dodge out of a lot of rocks falling down in this cave. Jinny actually not having the greatest of time, getting a couple rocks in this way that were pretty hard to not really possible to dodge. At least not if you're really trying to go forward. And Square will actually be looking for his safety armor, just like in race 1. That means he does sacrifice some time to get this, but it gives him a lot of insurance for the late game. Okay, then I guess I'm just blind. I was probably slightly focused on something on the left. And I do excuse myself for anything I missed right now. Oh, there's the top capsule from Square. This means his run is confirmed, no matter what he does. In some way, he's already won this race. And now we see this, well, not necessarily special, but kind of unique way of Jinny to deal with Chameleon. And Square will not have to handle with any rocks in the cave here, as he did kill RT55J, the official name of Green Biker Dad, as he is more commonly named in the community. What I did want to say just a moment ago, though, I do apologize myself if I miss anything, but it's kind of late here. If you can terribly hear my voice dying or not, but yeah, even my focus is dropping a little bit. So yeah. So Chameleon fight coming up for Square, and actually something interesting that I see about Square 1 in splits right now is that he has a major time save sitting right in this split, meaning that he has actually run any percent before without taking the armor, or at least has a gold split here in which he did not pick up the safety armor for safety armor. So basically that means that he has been playing extra safe just for the race, probably thinking to himself, in this race, if I compare my PB to that of Jinny, I am behind, so I kind of need to calculate a little bit that he's gonna make a mistake somewhere, and at that point it just becomes majorly important that I don't die. And in that aspect, he really makes a smart decision to take that armor. So Eagle right there on Jinny is not gonna play nice. Go instantly up and give him a bunch of dives. It doesn't cost you that much time in any percent to get a lot of dives, but it will always leave you with a bit of time loss. So that means Square catches up a little bit, maybe, if he gets better RNG. Mostly it's not gonna make the huge difference, but you know, every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. In a race, everything matters. And Mandrill is the next. Oof, Square actually jumping on the side of that one platform. Needs to be a little bit careful with that. If you would miss one of his buttons or whatnot and slides off, he could potentially die. Get decent setback. Because I do not think that you triggered a checkpoint before Eagle's airship yet, simply by being at that point. And we get a little Eagle hover, but no dives, meaning that we do get some catch up here, thanks to Eagle. And meanwhile, Jinny mashing his boomerangs into Thunder Slimer gets a pretty solid kill. And now gets to move on to the rest of the manual stage, which is one of the more difficult stages to execute properly, as there is a lot of tight movement where you really want to get through to pass these turtles or get some tight jumps in the midway sections. You don't really have a lot of space to navigate through the hordes of enemies. On the other hand, though, we have Square going into Mammoth. Mammoth is pretty straightforward. It's mostly holding right, and the enemies are not as much of a threat. You have a lot more movement space. It's not so big to deal with. So we do see that Jinny has gone a little bit low here on the right, but it's not a big deal. Mandrill also went low and actually takes the final hit first. Yeah, the Flame Mammoth play. Mammoth is actually, yeah, as Kaz is pointing out there in the chat, Mammoth can be placed anywhere at the end of your 8 mavs. You have to do Penguin and Eagle, but other than that, if you want to do Mammoth, whenever you feel like it, is just fine. People mostly have different opinions on doing Mammoth about, do I want to do him 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th? It kind of depends on how they are used to their weapon swaps. Since beating Mammoth does mean that you have Fire Wave in there, and well, if you're not used to it, it can mess with your swaps and be a little bit more difficult. Mostly, people do not like to do Mammoth before Mandrill because they will have an extra Fire Wave in the middle of their weapon swaps, which is actually kind of difficult to deal with if you're gonna go up against Thunder Slimer to try and be optimal. But of course, it's a pretty cool weapon, and you can also do this hallway, or at least the starting section with it, and burn everything to a crisp. We saw some birds there over on Jinny's end, but none of them giving him a lot of trouble. Extremely opinionated speedrunner that Mammoth 6 is the correct placement. Well, as far as I know, it doesn't really matter outside of personal preference, but I mean, I guess perhaps if you told me right there who this very opinionated speedrunner was, I might get slightly unofficial and off topic about it. I'm not really sure who it is, but you know, it doesn't really matter. Mostly important is that the placement is not so important, it's more of a preference. Also, as I see Nightbot plugging in the speed gaming schedule and the events, I would like to mention that you can always follow both of our runners here doing this amazing race for you guys, putting out their best. So if you would like to support these guys, you can always head over to square_1square or IrregularJinny over here on Twitch and pop the follow buttons. Mandrill has gone down on the side of square, and he will be looking for taking Dillo, and Jinny has actually gone through most of Octo meanwhile. Both are on their second to last Mavericks right now, so this race is looking a lot closer than the last one. There will still be Octo left as the final boss for Square after Dillo, and after Jinny is done with Octo, Mammoth will be his final boss. And this race is actually looking a lot more tight than we saw before. It's a little bit awkward right now to try and see how much time difference is between the two, because I mean they are not on the same route as long as the 8 map continues. But as soon as we get to Sigma 1, we're gonna see who's going where and what the position is at. I do believe that we definitely have Jinny in the lead, as we see he's now gonna move to his final Maverick, while Square is still on the way to his 7th one. But honestly said, I do not think the difference will be as huge as it was in game 1. that's for sure. Since neither runner has made any major mistakes so far. And with that, we see Mammoth being entered by Jinny and going on his way to his final challenge for the 8 maps. Dillo, being a mini, let's say a medium jerk today, or at least in this run to square. Give him a couple rolls, but nothing too bad. Yeah, Mammoth is a really short stage, so we can have a little comparison as soon as we get to Sigma 1 though. I think that will be the safest way to compare it. Meanwhile, always enjoyable to note, as I can see splits on boat runners, is that I have seen a couple of gold splits on boat runner sides. It's always nice to see that people are improving, sometimes even during these races. And you could probably be, excuse me, words are hard. You could probably blame that to the fact that in a race setting you're playing to win, so your focus is there and you just get things right. And with that, we see Mammoth going down at 2018 for Jinny. And he finally gets to move on to the Sigma stages. Nice work on that sub by Square. We'll see. Oh my gosh, he was so close to those spikes. Some people really like playing with their lives. Jeez. Had me scared for a second there. And Jinny, funny enough, wants to lose a lot of HP here. We got like 3 or 4 big health drops right there at the start of Sigma 1. Game tried to troll him a little bit, being like, hey, look at all this HP. We know you don't want it, but, you know. So, let's see. It does look like we will have quite a big lead here for Jinny. In fact, I did not think would be that big, but we had that 2018 kill for Jinny on Mammoth, and we have a 2143 kill on Octo for Square, meaning that we have definitely about a 1 minute and 20 to 25 second difference between two runners right now. This is actually quite significant. It's not as large as we had in race 1, so we did see boat runners slugging forward to the fortress in the first race, and Jinny had a little hiccup in Sigma 4. Square and sadly did not manage to catch up that time, but if the same thing would occur, Jinny does not have the same lead as last time, so everything is still possible. Yeah, depending on how deep into the fights that the death occurs, that is indeed true. Now, an entire minute and a half is hard to catch up on a single fight. Sigma 4 is more likely to lose you a lot of time. Because, you know, a fight is just a fight. If you die to Bow Spider, then, you know, you start right outside the fight. You have no platforming to do to get back or anything like that. So, generally speaking, it's not too bad. Okay, that somehow looked a little bit strange on the side of the square. I was a little bit afraid he could have some sort of a log going on there. It's not like that. He does in fact get through the cutscene and now gets the fight file. And on that same time frame, we see Jinny moving into Bow Spider. Hopefully getting not many baby spiders and some good patterns. Pretty good fight from Square there with Vile. Did not get hit. And Jinny actually doesn't seem to have too many issues right now with Spider. I have not yet seen any babies come out. Oh, well, oops. I should probably learn to be quiet. Oh, he doesn't get a charge shot, so he leaves Spider at 1 HP. And there we see Spider going down. Kaboom, boom, boom. And Sigma 2 will be next up for him. And meanwhile, Square right behind him, now at Kuwanger. He tossing a whole bunch of homing torpedoes right at him. Actually using Sea Sting to get to Penguin here at the start of Sig 2. And yeah, Sig 2, it's always RNG, so let's see what kind of slides we get. Oh, well, I mean, Penguin's like, you're bringing elemental weapons to this fight. Well, I've got one for you. Actually decides to freeze up Jinny there for a second and turn him into an ice sculpture for a little bit. But other than that, I did not get too many slides though. Speaking of slides, Square was a little bit too far away with his sled on the first hit to Bow Spider, and so he took a little ride on it instead. Seems to be reading the patterns quite nicely and getting through. Oh look, there's a pretty good one. Only 2 crossovers means that Spider goes to the bottom very quickly. And I do have to commend that I've never seen Square run this game before, so I wasn't really sure what to expect here. But his pattern readings on Spider seem to be quite on point. I'm not gonna lie. And Jinny moving on after a really good eagle fight. Going on to Rangda, and well, meanwhile we see the Buster strats from Square to get the Penguin. Blue Eyes coming up for Jinny. And the best weapon in the game getting used on said Square. Ah! Square getting a weird bonk on Penguin there. Well, that one eye kind of disappeared over on Jinny's side. It went all the way into the ceiling. That's pretty odd. I've seen the eyes take some different routes of where they go, but I don't think I've seen one fly all the way up into the ceiling before. And Square opting into using more Sea Sting here to get the Eagle. It's not really a problem to use Sea Sting through this entire level, since I mean you easily have enough ammo for that. But if you do miss too many hits on either Eagle or Rangda, I mean you have ammo to navigate through and kill both the bosses, but it is quite tight at that point. So it's really good for any runner in any percent to at least learn some of the sections in this level to do them without Sea Sting, so you really have plenty of it for the bosses. Here, Jenny once again with this very jumpy chameleon fight. Yeah, moving forward, we're gonna get ranked off for square and mandrel for Jinny. Blue eyes, always nice to see. Jinny just freezing up the mandrel. I think we have 3 hits there on the nose. Yeah, we do, and that will be a kill on the final eye, and that is actually very nicely done for square. We'll now be moving on to Sig 3. Square does look to be making up a little bit of time, I think. I have not really done any... Excuse me. Sorry, I had to sneeze. I haven't really done any checkups recently on their time. Rangda did get killed at 27:41 for Jinny. So, if I have to think here, he probably... Actually, I think Jinny has been getting a little bit further out of the range of square, if I'm not mistaken. He's taken a little bit more distance. And you know, he actually kind of has to. Jinny is the fast runner out of the two. He has the better PB. And we have to be fair, outside of the Iceless Heart for Jinny, there are no safeties to be had for him. So yeah, something like that. About 125. So I mean, Sigma 4 being so deadly as it is, we're really looking for him to finish the race for himself if he wants the victory, because if he doesn't, the fact that Square is bringing safeties to the final fight are a really big advantage. Let's be honest, he's not that far behind. They're both on Sigma 3, and after Mandel you just have 2 more Mavericks and DRX to go, which is really not all that much. Oh, I looked at the chat for a moment and I see that we have a respawn outside of the DRX fight. So looks like we took a little death over there on Jinny's side. That also is gonna help Square out, as we have no boomerangs left. This is gonna be pretty tricky for Jinny. He needs to buster this fight. Actually manages it quite nicely. It can be really annoying having to deal with this fight if you have only the buster. If DRX goes into a super aggro pattern, that's quite a tough deal. And I do see, of course that's compared to his PB, that Jinny lost like 40 seconds in regards to his PB. That's a really big deal. And you do see that Square got a whole lot closer to that. So now it's just looking at how that no safety item final fight's gonna go. Well, except for that one heart. To be fair, that one heart that Jinny took is really not gonna help him that much. It adds a couple HP to his health bar, but I'm not sure of the math, but I don't think it's actually enough to really save him from an extra hit. There was a 32-13 DRX skill for Jinny. So we can compare in a moment what it will be like for $33.45. So actually, we do see that Jinny has lost 30 seconds of advantage in comparison to Square. That's a whole lot of time, honestly. No, actually, Jinny did lose a lot of time compared to Square. Oh. Claw actually does a big hit there. And yeah, you can take an extra claw hit, I suppose, but I believe at this point the lightning would still kill Jenny. So he seems to be dodging them out nicely. Right above that one shot there, but he does finish at the race at the 34-37. It's a very respectable time to get. And meanwhile, Square is dealing with the doggy. Gets it to explode. Nice and easy. And yeah, this will be a GG for Jenny. He will be taking today's match with a 2-0. He's gonna be happy with that. That's his, if I'm not mistaken, his first victory in his group. It's also his first race, so he's gonna be happy with that. And Square actually chaining his hits pretty nicely onto Jedi Sigma here. And if Square finishes this fight nice and easy, which I hope he will, then we do have to say that his runs have been very consistent in comparison to his PB level. In both of these races, if I look at his splits, he has been very consistent. That is counting that his initial race had a bit of a hiccup, the intro. And he... Oh, wow, actually, this man finishes his race at the 36:12.51, which is a PB for him. Wow, wow, okay, look at that. Things I didn't even pay attention to, that he was on PB pace right there. So, wow, hey, look, he's a winner in himself, even if he did not win against Jinny right there. But yeah, he did have some really good runs for himself here. That does conclude this race though with a 2-0 victory for Jinny. Well, let's take a look here. I'm taking a look if the runners feel like having a little chat or not. Jenny is up for it. Oh, and I see Square on the Discord as well, so let's pull these two in here.
Hello.
Hello to both of you, Jenny and Square. Alright.
That was sick. Good stuff, dude. That was fun.
Yeah. Congratulations on the PB. Jenny, congratulations on the race victory. This was your first race in the group and a victory. Are you happy with that?
It's alright. I'm just mad that the first round wasn't PB because it had potential and then I just flopped it.
Yeah,
happens. It's fine.
That can happen. As you do mention the first race, I think everyone might want to have a little word with Square about that one. But, your run overall was really good. When I looked at your splits, your speed in your splits was consistent. You never lost a lot of time or gained too much time. But what the hell was that intro stage?
I just heard. I didn't see.
I don't know. I think my hands just weren't really warmed up as much as I thought they were, and I ran into the bees and tried to mash, and didn't make it through.
Yeah, not once, but twice you died to that first bee. Well, that was quite something. I have to say, you had me quite speechless there.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Perhaps maybe a little bit of jitters going up for the race today as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We
That's
waited
it.
for a while, so I mean that's partially it. We were grinding like 7 hours before, like a lot, so it happens.
Yeah, I suppose some fatigue may be settling in as well if you do that much preparation before the race. Do you guys already have your next races scheduled for for the group stage? I see you two still have Darrenville in your group and Kirby fan.
Yeah, Kirby fan was supposed like the original plan was for us to race right after this, me and him, and then possibly Square and him, but he felt too tired to do it, so I felt like I shouldn't force him to race if he doesn't feel isn't up for it, because there's still time to race.
Oh
So
yeah,
hopefully tomorrow night.
yeah. There's still a couple weeks to go for the group stages to conclude,
Yeah.
so there is definitely no rush. And I see Darrenville in your group is currently on 2 wins and no losses. Taking
I'm looking to take him down.
I
'Cause we're
see there.
close.
I don't have to ask anything here.
That's the goal right now. Like I did runs today, and I had runs that were sub 33 pace. So I feel like if I just play well, and the game is nice to me, which is it hasn't been for the past days, I could PB pretty hardcore. I did listen into the commentary, by the way. Good stuff. Uh, One thing you might not know about me, I've been playing this game since like 2012, so I have a lot of legacy strats, old school strats, and whatnot to bring
Yeah,
to the table.
I did notice that you do a couple things that I'm not used to seeing, like the ladder jumps that you always go off, the chameleon.
Yeah, the
Your way of fighting
chameleon.
chameleon is not something you see these days anymore.
No, I know that strat was developed from watching old school Japanese runners who usually start off the fight with two jumps or one jump off the wall, and I just felt like why should I just not move during that fight? There's no reason not to move during that fight. Sure, it's easier to just walk back and forth, but I'd like to keep my hands warm and going. So I feel like in that fight it just feels nice to jump around and shoot
Yeah,
for Chameleon.
I see. Well, I know you're quite an old runner. I've never seen much of your runs, but I know you're an old player in the community. Uh,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of nice to see how many people, different people, come together in this tournament, and you get to see some different things. That's for sure.
It's been 4 years since I touched this category, though, so I'm pretty intrigued that I was able to get sub 35 in the race.
Yeah, that's indeed something that you can be happy of if you haven't played it for that long, especially considering the brutality of the category.
Yeah, it's probably the roughest category. Uh, well, it is the roughest category. I usually run 100%, so I'm more used to that. But I know this most strats to beat the game decently fast. Like I can't world record obviously, but I can get as far as this. So by the way, thoughts on the first try iceless is by the way, because I was like, somebody's gonna notice this.
Yeah, I have to admit I missed it in the first race, potentially maybe due to the fact that it's quite late here. But I saw it on the second run, and I
That
thought,
was
oh wow,
clean.
look, uh,
That was
apparently we're
clean.
doing iceless in any percent now. That's something.
Yeah,
Uh,
one thing you might not have noticed that I'm frankly too proud of. I just have to mention this. I'm sorry, bragging points. My iceless strat is three. I think it was 3 frames confirmed faster than what everybody else does. Everybody lines up with the wall, which is easier. It gives you a tiny bit of more time to set up the kick. But me, I basically have to do a perfect jump straight off the ladder and then the kick off the ground and then 2 wall jumps and then the 2 frame grab. So I was shocked that I got that the second run. I did not expect to get Iceland's first try in this race.
all right, and it's 3 frames faster. So anyone running iceless on a high level pace that is currently in the chat, get wrecked right there. But you better rewatch this entire race and get to work.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was anything else special that I'd really want to talk about from these runs.
Yeah, I mean, big shout outs to you guys for hosting this and all the commentators putting in the work together. I love these events. I just don't enter them as much as I would like to. But now that I have set up for it at home, I can. So I decided to enter this and the Super Mario Odyssey tournament. So, don't miss out on the other tournaments. There's a lot going on right now, right?
Yeah,
Like
there
the
is quite a few
randomizer
things.
and like stuff. Yeah.
There was a link in the chat, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that this is the exclamation mark for the events. There you can see everything going on right now, events and tournaments in the calendar. There's also the MMX link, there's the runner links, and
Nice.
commentary links. So anyone that you'd like to follow or things that you want to follow up on, you can find it on all of these places. With that, I'm mostly all right with the interview. Is there anything you'd still like to say,
I don't know.
Square? You've been a little bit quiet.
No, just thanks a lot, guys. That was a
follow
fun
that
race.
kid. That kid's got potential.
Thanks, man.
All right. With that, I think we can send out the thanks to both of our runners here. We can thank everyone in the chat for coming in and checking our tournament out. There would not be as much point to it if it weren't for you guys. And of course, to Mythical for hosting the race here. And of course, the entire Speed Gaming crew as a whole, keeping these channels up and all of their events. And, they all take turns in hosting us. So
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I think that will be it. I believe these are normally all the scheduled races for today. This was actually a last minute match, so you never know. You might have to be back here soon. If not, more MMX will be in tomorrow. There will be 4 races lined up. And outside of that, I would suggest to take a look at the speed gaming schedule that was linked there at events. So you can take a look what else is going on right now. Not entirely sure. It's probably Super Mario Odyssey or ALTTP randomizer. Those are most common I've seen. And if I do take a quick look, I think you have Speed Gaming main channel with the Metroid 2 remake showcase and Speed Gaming 2 with ALTTP randomizer. So I would suggest that all of you guys go and take a little look at that. And with that, I'm gonna be out. It's almost 3 a.m. soon. I'm getting tired. I need to go die somewhere.
I feel you. It's almost 3 a.m. here too. So
Yeah. So, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we
Peace
will
out.
see you tomorrow.
See you
Good night.
later.